So welcome everyone to our personal branding chapter meeting. I'm going to be looking between here. It's weird navigating both meetings, I suppose. But yeah, we're going to get started. I had a reminder for everyone. Oh, just a quick reminder for people, if you haven't paid your PRSSA dues yet, they're due March 1st and they're $75 just in case you haven't and you're planning on it. Just a little reminder, but I don't have any other housekeeping updates for right now, so we can just jump into our speakers. So we have Matthew O'Connor, who is the Director of Corporate Media Relations and Network Communications at UPS, and Trey Newstedt, who is the Manager of Enterprise PR at IHG Hotels and Resorts. And I'm going to hand it over to y'all. So can each of you introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your careers? And Matthew, we'll start with you and then go to Trey.
Sure. So let's see. So I started my career on the agency side on a small agency in St. Louis, which is where I'm from. Did that for a few years and then had an opportunity to move to Orlando to work for a mid-size agency. And there again, it moved from local and regional clients to regional and national clients. So really some big names, and then moved to the corporate side a little while after that. Did a lot of consumer products work, also in Florida, then moved to Atlanta, where again, a lot of consumer products work for a large agency with national and international brands, and then going back to a mid-size agency, which at the time it was, we called it integrated marketing, but it's just how everything does. So the first portion of my career was really public relations, and then with the agency side, the integrated shop, it was truly integrated. So I was doing public relations with an emphasis on media relations. Social media was really coming online, so I was doing social media counsel, also acting really as a creative account director and advertising account director. So we had executives who managed like true creatives, as well as media planning and buying. So I was the account director for that, and then went corporate again, and I've been on the corporate side, both B2C and B2B ever since. So, and with international brands. So that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. You've been all over the place and have a lot of varied experience. So that's really cool. Trey, over to you.
Hey, I'm Trey, and I love the dues announcement that took me back to my PRSSA days. Being on the executive board at I went to Elon University.
Okay.
So moved down to Atlanta in January 2014 for my first job on the health team at Edelman, and then moved to a small agency for about 2.5 years, a little bit outside of the city in Alpharetta. And that's where I really kind of gained a lot of great experience, a lot of direct client experience, and learned how to, manage those relationships and really just, deliver great work. And then was kind of looking to make a move, and an opportunity opened up on the brand PR team at IHG, and had a lot of different roles here in the almost 5 years I've been here. I started in August of 2017, right after our new global CEO was announced. So that means he's going to reorg the company, how he wants to structure it. So been through a lot of change. I started on 3 brands, then moved to just dedicated to 1 brand, which is Crown Plaza, then moved on to upscale. And now I'm in my current position, which I started in January of 2020, which has been a whirlwind. As you can imagine, working in hospitality or really any large, and I'm sure logistics as well during the pandemic has been a roller coaster. Been through a furlough during the summer of 2020, but now I help lead our commercial and technology PR, and it's really cool because it was a new position created because these teams were asking for more, and we determined that there really needed to be a dedicated person on this work, and it's really kind of given me a nice lens into more of the business communications and how different departments work, and really working with a ton of different stakeholders across our commercial and tech teams, which also, includes everything from guest facing and owner facing tech. And then working on executive visibility as well for our chief commercial and tech officer and our chief customer officer and their leadership.
Awesome, especially when you're in a new position, something that happens with them.
Yeah.
Okay, and so for our next question, I'm going to keep with the same pattern of Matthew and Trey, just so what is your definition of personal branding?
It's really, I think it's how you're known. And like just with branding a company, you may have a different brand than you think you have. And so it's really, it's optics as much as anything. So how do people know you? How do your peers know you? How does leadership know you? When people think about not just you as a person in terms of what you stand for, but the work that you do, how are you known? How are you known? What do people think about? And it's really pretty varied, it starts with how you carry yourself, do you think and speak clearly and succinctly? Do you make your moments count? Or are you always jumping in, right? That's something. And might seem like a little thing, but in terms of the bigger brand of your personal brand is, are you seen as a doer or a strategic thinker? And that's one of those things that really can make an impact in terms of your personal brand is in those optics. And then from there you get into your experience, but the experience, while it's important, there's so much more that goes into your brand.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great advice. Especially the doer versus a thinker thing. I really like that. Trey, same question.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's really how you show up and what is the image and brand that you're putting out there to your to your peers, to your friends, to your teachers, to your professors, to your coworkers, to leadership. And what do they think about you? How do they see you? Do they have confidence in you? That's something I've dealt with a lot in this new role. I'm kind of communicating a lot directly with VPs and SVPs and the C-suite, and thankful that the team has trust in me to do that. But it's something you build throughout time too. And I think sometimes it can be tough to change perceptions, and they're formed very quickly sometimes, fairly or unfairly, but really it's just what do you put out into the world, and what's that image of yourself, and then how do others perceive you, just like with how we perceive any brand or product.
Yeah, that's why I think it's interesting, because you kind of have to consciously think about how others are thinking of you in a way. So all right, so next question. What is the first step that you take in the branding process?
It's got to be genuine. That's number one, is it's got to be genuine. And number two for me would probably be not the second, but like third or fourth, because being genuine is so important. If you're not true to yourself and you're not bringing your full self to work, if you're not showing up with your best self, it's not going to be every day, right? Nobody's going to bring their best self to work every day. We all live a roller coaster. But if it's that consistency over time, and it's your integrity, it's being open-minded and listening to others and processing what they're sharing with you and being cognizant of that, and bringing that to what you share with others and how you think through challenging situations, how you look for opportunities. That's the stuff that I think is really the most important, because when you step aside from those elements, which I see are absolutely the biggest parts of a personal brand, the work product is the work product. once you get out and you start working and you start your career, we should all be good writers. We should all be staying in touch with the news media. We should all be up on what's happening on social and in the world, right? We should all be engaging with other people on our teams and building plans and implementing well and showing up well. Those are table stakes, right? Everybody does that. So how are you different than everybody else? And it comes back to, like as Trey said, it's what you bring to work every day.
I really like that, being genuine, because that really is kind of how you can differentiate yourself from other people doing the same work. That is just being yourself, since every person brings their own thing to the table.
And to that, like, there are going to be places, employers, where it's just not a good fit. You know, if you're not a drinker, a liquor or beer distributor is probably not for you. If you're a health food nut, you're probably not going to be one. I mean, Inspire has got some great brands, right? Phenomenally successful business. If you are not into Arby's, that's probably not the brand for you, right? And I say that with all reverence for the brand, because they've got a great business. But you just want to look at it and say, is that really the best thing for me?
Yeah, I agree with that.
I would certainly echo the being genuine. I think it's so easy to see through, and it's just exhausting to be anything else to me. I mean, from my standpoint, especially with the world that, you know, we've been living in for the past few years, you know, being genuine is one of the things that's kind of gotten everyone through it, right? Like being able to acknowledge that we're struggling, or we're tired of working from home, or we're tired of being in this virtual environment. Like, I think you have to be able to be genuine and acknowledge things, and that builds, you know, team culture, and it kind of brings you closer together and you work better together. But starting off, I would just think about what you want to be known for, what are the things that you want people to say about you. And then really it starts with, you know, like getting those little wins, building your confidence, building your skill set, and, you know, building kind of what areas interest you, what you're passionate about, what drives you, you know, inside and out, you know, in work and out of work. Like, I think, you know, it's important to have other outlets, because if you don't, you'll drive yourself insane. Just worrying about work. You have to have things that kind of make you whole, and you know, you bring that energy back to, you know, to other things. So really starting out, I would just say, what do you want to be known for?
Yeah. I like what you
Yeah.
said. I'm sorry, go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, no, so well said, Trey. And, you know, and just to go dig a little deeper on that, and this is something that I've certainly encountered throughout my career, is how you spend your time. And that falls straight in with the, you know, follow your passions, right? And it's the old adage that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, which is really true. But you also need to find some balance. So, like, in my career path, I have always been a motorsports junkie. I mean, if it's got an engine, I'm all over it. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's just like, that's one of my passions. And I've been blessed to be able to work in motorsports a couple times in my career, like 3 times in my career. I cut my teeth on it, working for IndyCar teams in marketing and public relations. Wasn't looking for it, but got a job. And when I was in Florida, that corporate stint was at NASCAR when they were on their way up. And I was never a NASCAR fan. So it's like the guys who turn left kind of thing. But it was a tremendous business opportunity. They were by far the biggest business for motorsports. And that was a blast, because I was working on the business side of it, not the sports side of it. And then before I joined UPS, I was PR director for Triumph Motorcycles. And so, like, talk about living your passions, right? To be able to do that 3 times in your career. But I tell you, each time I walked away from it and didn't do it for my career, I could be a fan again. So keep that in mind. Like, if you are all about the fine arts, right, and you really want to live fine arts, go for it, but know that every time you go to a performance or do a show opening or whatever it may be, even if you go just as a fan, you're still working because your brain is still thinking, what could I do? Hey, there's some inspiration for me when I take it back to where I'm working. Your brain never turns off. It's really hard to be a fan if you work in your area of passion. It's not a bad thing, right? But just know that there's always the other side of the coin, right? And I say that not just in terms of following your passion and following who you are as a person, but knowing that there's going to be choices that need to be made in terms of how much do you want your personal and business lives to intersect? And there's no wrong answer. You just have to find what's right for you.
Yeah, it's a good thing to consider, but also want to say I love motorsport too. I'm a big F1 fan, so really excited for the season.
Cool. Love F1. Yeah, definitely. I watched more
Matt,
F1 than NASCAR before I went to work.
I don't know if you know my colleague Neil Hirsch, but he's a big car guy too, and had some experience working at General Motors, I think, for a while. And yeah, so he's a big car guy as well.
Yeah, I know Neil through PRSA, but I didn't know that he was a big car guy. I'll have to catch him on that next time.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. So next question is, what is the best advice you can give to someone building their brand other than what you said?
Just be true to yourself and the soft skills, and know it's going to take time. You know, I am a type A person, and I'm going to go once I set my mind, I'm going, but just know that it's probably going to take more time than you anticipate. And that's okay. And the other part is just sticking to it. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to find out that you can look back on things in which you would have done things differently. That's okay. Just stick with it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when I say things didn't work out at Edelman, it means I was fired after a year, which was quite the experience to be let go from, one of the biggest PR agencies in the world, the one that you just have such eyes for coming out of college as your first job. But it was an environment that I had never been in before, even, through internships and things like that. I'd never been in a place that big that operated like that. Still learned a ton that I still, carry with me today, but, it wasn't the end of the world. And I've been able to kind of bounce back at where I went after, and now I'm in the position that I'm in. But yeah, I would say it's a slow process. It's something you should always be conscious of, but not something that should seem daunting. It just happens over time with what you do and how you show up consistently. And, again, it's just something that, you just be conscious of and think about how you're going to show up every day and the energy you're going to bring. And especially it's more important than ever now working, in a virtual or hybrid environment. You got to bring, I'd say, even more energy because you're not, in person. You have to kind of make up some of that. So, it's just built step by step.
Yeah, I like that. I had a comment to say, and my train of thought left me. Maybe I'll think of it later when we open Q&A. So what are some of the attributes that recruiters are looking for in their candidates today?
So I think there's a few things. The first of it, and the interesting thing is it really hasn't changed over time. If anything, the need for internship experience has only gotten stronger, and that's because the field is so strong. So you need to be a strong writer and this is the same advice that I got when I was getting my bachelor's, right? I mean, I'm not going to say how long ago it was, but it was a long time ago. And they still said, I can teach you, I can teach you the career, I can teach you the profession, but I can't teach you how to write. If you're not a good writer when you're coming out, passing over. Just that simple. So become the best writer you can be. become the most nimble, most versatile writer you can be, and then focus on your soft skills. If you have those two things, and then you add in some internships, and it used to be that one internship was good enough. Now, two is really pretty much the barometer. I mean, that's it. And it doesn't have to be like a true dedicated internship. You know, there are some universities that have got the equivalent, like if you're doing like an internship like work as part of a class, and you can frame it like that, that counts, right? I really don't care as a hiring person for an internship or a first job, if you've done internship experience over the summer, or if you've done it as part of a class, or both. I would rather see both, because the important part is you're getting that experience. And it's relevant experience, and you come away with a good portfolio that you can show the writing experience and be prepared to say, you know, answer the question, how much did you write and how much was edited for you? Because there are a lot of us who still give a writing test so we can see exactly how much editing was done. And you'll be surprised at the results that we get.
That's good. That's one thing that's, you know, always been consistent, like you said, writing. If you want to be in the industry, you have to be good at it or you won't.
We don't expect you to be, you know, a fantastic person, you know, pitcher to the press and crafter of pitches, and when you come straight out of school, because we know there's only so much experience you'll be able to get pitching the press and talking with the journalists when you're starting out. But in the meantime, there's still, you know, a solid 4 years worth of writing classes you can be taking to help you keep getting better. School newspapers, oh my gosh, do not underestimate the value of writing, even if you're just volunteering to do some pickup articles for the school paper. Golden.
Okay.
Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, writing and being able to write for a lot of different formats. I think email is one that just is, you know, more than 50% of how people perceive you, right? Because you're emailing your team, you're emailing leaders, your manager, other people outside of your team, your key stakeholders or clients. And that it's just so important to be able to understand how to, you know, organize a message and craft it in a way where you're getting your point across and only giving it, especially when you're dealing with, you know, senior leaders who maybe have 5 minutes or less to look at, you know, your email at the end of the day after they've been in meetings since 8 a.m. But I also think, you know, well-rounded is important. You know, are you involved in, you know, something like PRSSA where it's, you know, more looking towards your profession, and maybe something outside of, you know, your profession that you're interested in. You know, are you know, kind of looking at other interests. I think the little things, just like attention to detail, you know, like the basics on your resume and email follow-ups and things like that. You know, I think we're past the point of being able to send handwritten thank you notes. I was a big fan of those, but things tend to move a little bit quicker than that now in the process, and with the pace of mail, sometimes it may not get there, but at least an email follow-up as a thank you, I think is important. And then just being able to articulate your experiences and how they tie back to, you know, what you're looking to grow in. I think when I interviewed for the role that I have now, my last interview was with our VP, and I was nervous because I didn't know, you know, people were telling me, oh, this looks good. You know, this is a good sign. They're moving you through quick. You're internal. They definitely want to give it to you. And I was like, I don't know. It's a manager level. That could be anywhere from like, you know, 5 years to 15 years of experience. I mean, there's such a you know, huge time frame of experience that could be applicable to this level. And one of the questions she asked me was, how does this play into your 5-year plan? And my answer was, I don't really have a 5-year plan. My mind doesn't work like that. I've never been someone who was like singularly focused on, oh, well, I want to do this. I want to be a pro golfer. I want to do this or that. But I was able to answer it in terms of what does this role give me that I don't have? It gives me more business experience, more corporate experience, knowledge of things that I don't have right now in different areas of the business, different, the ability to work with different people, and really kind of rounds me out. So I think it just being able to tie things back to your experience and how you grew is important as well.
Yeah, that's really good. The 5-year question, the 5-year plan question thing always scares me because I feel like I have the same answer as you. Like, I don't know, I like to keep myself open, like whatever comes. So I don't know. Kind of off topic, what do you think is the best way to kind of answer that question?
I don't know. I think like I think it's hard to know that. I think especially coming out when you may have had 2 or 3 internships, they may have all been at agencies or all been corporate, so you may not have seen the other side of things. Like for me now, I don't know that I would ever go back to an environment like a massive agency, but we'll see. But I don't think there's anything that could make me go back to that environment. I think it just isn't for me. But I think just being able to talk about your interests and be able to tie it in some way back to what you're interested in or what you want to grow in terms of your skill set, or what interests you about the company or the team that you've heard. But I think it's a hard question to answer, especially, it gets a little more clear as you go through your career and you've had different experiences and you think, or you start to, get a clear picture of, oh, this is where I want to end up, or this is the kind of role that I really excel in, and this is where I want to be. It's hard, if you haven't had the experiences, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and to that, you'll learn also that there's like certain buzzwords or catchphrases that tip you off to the environment. Things like fast-paced, entrepreneurial, that usually equals really long hours. That equals nights and weekends. So if the fast pace is one thing, but just know that if they're promoting, because if a business is successful, they're entrepreneurial by nature. If the company is growing, it's got a pretty decent pace. The question is it a healthy pace, right? So there's little nuances in there that as you get in and get that experience, you'll pick up on. The trick is to stay close to people who have been down or, are going down the road at the same time you are, and then also who have got a head start on you, have been down the road a little bit longer, and they've picked up on those. Just like there's all in every market, and I'll say this having been in a few of them now, where some companies just have a reputation for being a great employer and some do not. And some, you just never know because the leadership changes. And these are especially some certain agencies. And it's just the way it is. And I say that meaning you can have one agency that's a national or an international agency, 6 different markets, and the environment is different in each of those different markets because the leadership is different in each of those markets. And the teams are different in each of those markets. So you just have to be very cognizant about those details.
Yeah, I think those are some really good things to consider when you're job hunting. I've seen posts on LinkedIn lately that are like making fun of like fast paced and entrepreneurial and those buzzwords that don't mean what they want you to think they mean. So I feel like maybe more people might be catching on to that lately, but
yeah, and also remember that you ultimately get to set the pace. And if it's a good fit, the pace will fit. And if it's not a good match, then the pace is not going to fit.
I think it goes back to something else you said too about, everyone has their own values and what they can tolerate. So it just depends on each. So what are some resources that students can use to help develop their personal brand?
You've already got a great one. I mean, PRSSA and PRSA, oh my gosh, tremendous. Definitely. Big believer. I've been engaged with PRSA throughout my career. Again, the markets, it's stronger in some markets than others, but Atlanta, absolutely stellar strong, excellent chapter. Love the people, love the programming. It is really, really good. If you have an opportunity to go to like a regular monthly luncheon or listen in, even if it's online, I highly recommend it. Fantastic opportunity.
And then there's a conference in March, everyone virtual and in here.
Yes, there is, March 18th.
We'll be there. And Trey, what about you? Do you have any more resources that students could use?
I'm also a big fan of PRSSA and PRSA. I've been involved in PRSA for a few years now and help lead the professional development committee now. So that's been a cool experience, and we're actually this year kind of taking a different approach and really tailoring. It used to be kind of blanket content, and now we're kind of tailoring our approach for different career levels. So there used to be special interest group for young professionals, but now we're just kind of looking at how do we tailor content to young professionals, mid-level and senior. But I would say just look at, we all see brands, we all see people that we, like and follow, who are in the public eye. Just, take what you can from anywhere that you like, and see how, how a brand carries, puts itself out there, how a person puts themselves out there, and learn from that. I would also say, as you're going into your internships or your entry-level jobs, you'll learn something good or bad from every manager that you have, and they're not all going to be great, and they're not all going to be terrible, but if you're paying attention, you'll take little things from both sides, and that'll start to kind of form your style when you get to that point. But I think it's just really kind of paying attention and being observant and processing it, and taking that into what you put out there.
Definitely. Yeah. And then I'll add on to what Trey was saying is, build a network. Informational interviews, and then you can learn so much. And this is early counsel that I got, was just do an informational interview. Don't go look for a job. Don't talk to them about a job. If you've got can get an in with somebody in the field and just spend 30 minutes, talk with them about their career path like we're doing tonight, ask them good questions, and that one-on-one will give you an opportunity to have a more intimate discussion in terms of your interests and where and who do you know kind of thing. Because Trey, I'm sure you've seen the same thing. For as big as Atlanta is, we've got a really small community.
Yeah, you know one of my bosses, right? So it's always smaller than you think it is.
It is, yeah, and that's one that I didn't. Actually, there's at least one, maybe two others. So Karen Cole, who.
Yes, I was gonna ask you about Karen too. Longtime
PRSA, another formerly with UPS.
Mm-hmm.
Karen and I met. She had left UPS. I met her through PRSA. Hey, she's another former UPSer.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the stories, the intersections. The town is so small. Our industry in Atlanta, it gets so small so quick. If you just do that engagement and talk with folks and ask, hey, can you refer me to two other people for another just informational interview? They'll do it. Guarantee it. Check out my LinkedIn. If there's somebody in my LinkedIn that's a local, or if you're trying to move to another market where there's an interest in the passion and in passion and in your interests, right? That's okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. The small world thing is really true. I've run into that.
Yeah, and I have a very strong opinion on informational interviews. I can't recommend them enough. And leveraging the career resources available to you at Kennesaw, I think that was a huge, benefit to me at Elon. It's how I got my first internships. It's how I got my foot in the door at Edelman through the alumni network. And, you never know when you're going to end up, using those connections, right? Like I had friends who were on more maybe in the business side, business major or whatever, and they'd be applying to like 1,500 jobs all online, no connections. And I was just like, you're not going to hear back. Like if we get an application from someone we know, and this person has essentially already been vetted and they are willing to put them out there to us, that means that they're a pretty good candidate, right? And like that's just how it works. A lot of times, I mean, it's hard to break through those like online applications where they're getting potentially thousands of applications. But I will say too, one of the pieces of advice I got when I was a senior and doing informational interviews was I would always ask, like, what's one more piece of advice? And they would say, you're doing more than 95% of people your age by just talking to me, which I didn't. I went to school. I felt like everybody I was, in school with was driven and involved in a bunch of different things like I was. But being on the other side, that is true. Like, and it's interesting to me because, people like Matt and myself, we always say we're here to help, right? Like we're here to talk to students, to give advice, talk to young professionals, pay it forward. That's, how no one gets to where they are on their own. And there's still a ton of people who help us out, on a daily basis. But it doesn't take as much time as you think either. I mean, it takes 10 minutes, 5 minutes to craft the email, 30 minutes to have the call, and another 5 to say thank you. Like and then you've made a connection, right? Like it's not as daunting as it seems. And you can learn so much in those interviews. I've learned a lot just from people saying, well, we look for people who have the skills and the attention to detail and all this, but also it's like, can we hang out with this person for 8 hours a day, or for 10 hours a day, whatever it is. Like culture fit is such a big, and that's where the authenticity and comes in. Like culture fit is such a big aspect of what people are looking for, because you're going to be coming into the team, and that team has probably been working together for a little while at least, and they have their own culture. And are you going to be someone who's flexible and a fit, or are you going to maybe cause problems? I think being a team player is something that is not going to ever go away. And I know we all sometimes complain about group projects, but I mean, there's no better way to prepare for the real world, because work is one big group project. So yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Some great advice from both of y'all. Thank you. Is there something you wish someone told you? Is there something you wish someone had told you that you had to learn the hard way when it comes to personal branding?
Trey, you can go first on this one if you want, because I was thinking about this. It's like, gosh, where do I start?
The hard questions for last.
I don't know. I think based on my experience at Edelman, I think sometimes perceptions are harder to change than you think they are. And sometimes you don't necessarily even, if people aren't looking out for you and telling you what you're putting out there and what people are perceiving of you, and you don't have time to fix it, then it's really hard to flip that, especially in a short amount of time. I think now I don't know if I was even ever that conscious of it, because I was just, being myself and bringing energy, and I didn't, maybe wasn't as conscious of it as I should have been, but now I'm very conscious of it, and know how to kind of look out for myself, and, be more conscious of everything in the whole product I'm putting out there, and not just being myself and bringing energy, but just the work product as well. But I think the size of the world too, right? Like it's much smaller than you think it is, and people know people who you have no clue, and so you don't ever want to be in a position where you're being very negative about a company, or a person, because you never know who they know or who if the person you're talking to may know them and may be very close to them and may have a much different opinion. And then all of a sudden you're, talking to high profile people who are in charge of hiring, and they now have a perception of you that you might be more negative. So, I think it's really just, you need to be conscious of it all the time.
Trey, that is excellent advice. And for the group, we were just talking a little bit about how small the world is, especially in Atlanta for our industry. And as Trey was sharing this, I was thinking, okay, I know I've gotten calls from people at other companies because someone who used to work for me or worked on a similar team is now looking for a job with them. And I've done the same thing with them. And so just in that short time, it's like, I'm just like clicking off the number of corporate and agency companies, businesses, right? Corporate and agency, where I just know people that I can make that phone call. And I'm just one person. Think about the number of people on my team. And that I know 2 people that work with Trey, right?
Two people who I've also I still report to Neil, but I also reported to Karen for a little while coming back from furlough. So yeah.
So to what he's saying, I mean, there's a lot of weight in what Trey was sharing, right? I mean, I can't underscore how important what he just shared is. And then the other thing I'll share with that is, it's not the logo on the door. I mean, we work for 2 very big internationally renowned companies with very good reputations. It has not always been the way. It is not. There are a couple companies not going there again. And it's because of the people, right? I mean, it's a solid business, but it all comes down to the people and the culture. And so, looking back and reflecting on my career is, especially in my early part of my career, I was looking for, and I mean, I was not happy with the local regional work, just wasn't. So I intentionally went after the national work. Sometimes it's really rewarding and fun. Sometimes I was really looking forward to going back to doing local regional work because it was so much more rewarding, and the people who were doing that work were just so fantastic to work with. And so there are some tremendous brands out there, but don't be deceived by the power of the brand. Spend more time looking at the people that you'll be working with and the opportunity that you'll have working with the people, more so than the company you're working for or might be working for. Because that's really, at the end of the day, it all comes down to who you're working with and the work you're doing together. And as Trey was saying, was the team. It's the work that you're doing as an individual, but we're all collaborating, right? I can't do anything during the day without talking or collaborating with like 6 different people. And the higher up you get in your career, the bigger a deal it is, right? Like when I started my career, I was dealing with other public relations people and the communications people for the clients and all that. Now, as much of work as I'm spending with communications people, I'm also working with HR, health and safety, legal, labor, operations, security. These are folks that I've dealt with in the last 3 days. And
Yep.
So
It's turned off in here, the motion sensor.
But it's fun because they're good people and we work well together, right? I don't have any desire to be an attorney or go into corporate security. But they're good people, they're great at what they do, they're easy to work with. And because of that, it's phenomenal. If you take the name off the building and put any other name on it, I would still want to work with them. And that's the litmus test, right? That's the test right there. If you pick up the people and put them in a different building, do you still want to work with them? Do you still want to do the job that you're doing? That's the test. Forget the name on the building.
Yeah, I love that. And I would just add on, like, the people who you're working with and for is such a huge part of it. I mean, that was the biggest part of, I mean, other than, you know, the experience I would get in this new role, the fact that I would be reporting to somebody like Neil was such a huge part in my interest in the role, because he's so well respected and he's so good at his job, and he just has such a knowledge of the business and everybody in it, and he's just so good at it. And I knew that I could learn so much from someone like him. So I mean, that really does come into play, and who you're working with, who you're working for. And you know, Matt said, they're you know, places everybody has eyes for that may not be, you know, exactly what you think they are. And then there are other companies, like Atlanta's full of just companies who are just massive and global that nobody's ever heard of. Like one of my directors, who was unfortunately laid off during the summer of 2020, landed at a company called Dematic, and they're a huge global company, and they have incredibly beautiful offices in, I think, Buckhead, and nobody's ever heard of them. But they're huge, right? So, you know, the world is much bigger than you think it is when you're coming out of school. I mean, every company needs communications, whether it's internal, external. You know, the need is so great, and that's only been highlighted, you know, during the pandemic, the need for communication. So I think, you know, having an open mind is a big thing as well.
Yeah, that's great. Both of those were big things for both of you. I have the culture thing. I had kind of experience too. Last summer, I had 2 interviews for 2 potential internships, and I interviewed both. And I thought to myself after that, even if I happened to get offers from both, I knew which one I would choose, because the people interviewing me, we meshed really well together, and the energy was great, and the other one wasn't. Our energies weren't matching. The person interviewing me was more kind of dry and not engaged with me when the others were. So I agree that that's really important.
And Lindsay, that's not uncommon, believe it or not. I mean, there are a number of times where in, you know, my hiring of an intern or an entry-level person, we'd have 2 candidates who were both fantastic on paper, and the phone interview went great, and this was like pre-Zoom. Then you bring them in, or you talk like in person. And the order of the candidates, right? Your first choice, you're going in with a first and a second choice. You just are. But the number of times where it flipped, and your second choice becomes your first choice, because of that very reason, and the rationale is always the same. They'll fit here better. The personalities mesh, right? It's the things, though, it's the things that you can't do on paper and a phone interview will mask, but you're not masking it in person. And it's so important. And then, you know, and there's been interviews and conversations I've had with people who have, you know, been even deeper in their career. And it's, is this the right place at the right time for you? And if y'all think about it that way, it helps you stay grounded in what you're looking for, but it also helps you come to grips with the fact that, you know what, it's okay to not get the job. It's okay to say no to the job, because there is going to be something right around the corner. And that's the stressful part, is the not knowing. But sometimes it's worth it. And it's okay to take that chance and to have that uncertainty.
Something good to think about. Something that I'm sure all of us are uncomfortable with, is the uncertainty, but kind of learning to be comfortable with it in a way. So those are all the prepared questions we had. And so now I'm going to open up the floor to everyone online and in here, if y'all have any extra questions for them. Grace?
Are they going to be able to hear me from right here?
No,
Yeah.
we're going to be good.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
we can hear.
You're good. Go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to know, have you ever felt the pressure that you need to be doing more than you're doing? Like, for instance, for me, I'm working at a smaller agency. No one really knows what it is. And I know comparing to family members or some of my peers who might be working for a big corporate company and feeling like, I'm not doing enough for my age or something like that. Have you ever felt that sort of pressure?
Daily. All the time. In all seriousness, like daily is not far from the truth, because there's always something more. There's always somebody working longer or harder, or it's the ebb and flow, like there are different parts of the curve than you are in the work product. It's constant. And so that's where being true to yourself and not having the confidence that you put in a solid day's work for you and for the company. Sorry for the dogs. But if you have you can know that you put in a solid day's work through your fair to you and your fair for the company, you're good. The company will always take more. It's up to you to draw the line.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, it's, are you doing what is making you happy, what you feel is right for you at the time? Are you growing how you want to be growing? There's always going to be somebody doing something differently or something that you perceive as better. It's like, it's the social media syndrome that we all live in now with the, Instagram and everybody posting the perfect pictures and perfect moments. But really it's, are you, like Matt was saying, are you in the right place at the right time for you? That's what it boils down to. You'll drive yourself crazy trying to compare yourself to everyone you know and everyone you see out there. It's not possible. You just have to focus on working on yourself, being happy with, how you show up day in and day out, and are you growing and working towards where you want to get to.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's something, my question was kind of similar to Grace's, so you kind of answered what I was going to ask, because it's something that seems so simple, yet it's so hard to grasp. Just doing what's best for you and trying not to compare yourself to other people, and not getting discouraged when you see people that you think would be going for the same jobs as you, but you think they're more qualified, and just doing it anyway. So, guys, do you have any more questions? Or online? Lauren?
Yeah, I have one.
Go ahead.
Okay, so in terms of personal branding, I have been updating my resume constantly just in this time of applying for internships and stuff. And I have been drawn to colors and patterns on my resume because I want to stand out, and also that's more true to me than the standard black and white. But as people who are higher up in corporate companies, how is that perceived from a higher up perspective? Do you prefer the standard black and white resume, or do you like the colors and the patterns that are true to the candidate?
As long as it's not overdone. And I'll couch that by saying, like the color should be like, try to put yourself on our shoes. And based on the last question also, right? So I'm trying to shut down at night. And usually when you're hiring for somebody, it's on top of everything else. So the format and the writing is paramount, right? So if the color of the paper is a little bit, so the black ink for the copy, absolutely, because it's so much easier to read, right? The font, same thing. Pick a font and a point size, super easy to read. The way things have gone, don't need to see an address, right? I need a name, phone number, and email. Don't need the rest of stuff, because quite frankly, I don't care where you live, because if I'm hiring in Atlanta, one way or the other, you're going to be in Atlanta, right? And then really just kind of your elevator pitch in terms of what you're doing. And so if you've got something stylistic, don't let it slow any of that stuff down, because I'm skimming. And at a larger company, unless you've got an in to send it directly to me, it's going through our HR folks first. And with the computer algorithms like Trey was talking about, I mean, there's keywords, there's matches. I mean, so much of it is automated now to be able to get to it. I can't tell you what it's like, how many resumes don't make it to us because of those. So crisp and clean, and then work your network.
Yep, I agree. No notes, as they say.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I have 2 more minutes. Do we have any more questions?
Another one,
Grace
sorry.
has another question.
Okay, so if we're in this scenario where you're a hiring manager and you have 10 candidates who are all about to be recent college graduates, and they come into an interview, what would make one of them stand out amongst the rest? Because I know we're all in the same boat. We all are trying to compete to get our foot in the door quicker than the rest of people so that we get the job. So what are you looking for in a candidate?
Trey, you can go first since I've been doing so much of it if you want.
I'm not as well versed in the hiring manager aspect, but I would say, like we've been talking about, if the foundation, the foundational elements are all there and the, there have been no mistakes or things that would kind of automatically, kind of move somebody down the list, just be true to yourself. I mean, like we've talked about, we want, you to be genuine and be able to articulate your experiences and what you're looking for and what you're curious about, what you're looking to grow in, what attracts you to the company or the position or the team that you're looking to join. Whatever is meant to happen will happen. If you've done all of that, then it's up in the air whether they think it's a culture fit or you're the best person or not. But if you've done all that you can, you've been yourself, you've brought energy and shown your personality and been able to do everything right, then you will end up where you're supposed to be. That's the hardest thing to accept as even now, but it's funny. I was talking to an Elon student a few years ago, and they said, "Oh my God, you can have an internship after you graduated," because I had an internship the summer after I graduated because I couldn't find what I was looking for. And I was like, yeah, sometimes you have to. Like, they were amazed that I had an internship after I graduated, but like things will always work out the way they're supposed to, and you will always end up eventually where you're supposed to end up, as long as you stay true to yourself and you're not compromising, on anything. You'll be happy in the end.
I second that. Absolutely. And it ultimately comes down to that rapport, right? I mean, bring your true self and have a conversation. Because while we're interviewing you for the job, you're also interviewing us for the job. It's so, and if you decide that, hey, this really isn't the place, like that guy, he's not for me. I would not want to work with him. Make the call. Go work for Trey. If you don't like me, go work for Trey, right? Because, and it's not, it could be, you both have good credentials, but if you just get along better with that other person and they get along better with you, what's wrong with that? That's great, because you're going to be spending a lot of time together.
Yeah, I mean, some of the best advice I've ever gotten is when I was interviewing with the VP for this role. She's intimidating. I mean, she's very smart. She's British and Australian. She's got, a great accent, but it was intimidating interviewing with a VP for a level up. And I asked my director at the time for advice, and he said, look, just like you've done with brand leadership you've worked with and everything else, they're people, right? Like, they're not they're not some different entity just because they're a C-suite, or VP or whatever. Like, everybody is a person. And what he told me is, if you start the conversation, just going right to business, like, they're going to, she'll take that cue, and it might be a little more intense. But if you, walk in and say, oh, hey, how's your day going, and start a little more casual, then, it might be a little more of a relaxed conversation and vibe. And I think that's, don't be as intimidated as you think you need to be by, interviewing with, a company and you're talking to a VP for an internship or director for an entry level role, whatever it may be. They're people at the end of the day. They want to have a conversation. They want, it's an interview. It shouldn't have to be, something so intense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Come relaxed. We want to get to know you, right? We've already seen the resume. So we know the GPA, the classes you've taken, the prior experience. We talked to you. It's already been vetted, right? So by the time you get there, that's done. We just want to get to know you. And we want you to get to know us.
I like what you both said about, being relaxed and then thinking of it as just kind of a conversation. So it makes you more relaxed in that way. Grace, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay. So we're at 7:03, so I think we're gonna call it. But thank you so much, Trey and Matt, for speaking with us tonight. I think this was an awesome meeting, and I really appreciate you for logging on. And thank you everyone for attending online and here in the classroom. I really appreciate it. So yeah, I hope everyone has a great night.
Well, thank you for having us. And if anybody has any more questions or anything, Lauren and Ashlyn have my information, so feel free to reach out.
Oh, and I meant to ask, is everyone open to connect with y'all on LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be fine, yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Thank y'all so much for a wonderful meeting. This has been great.
Welcome.
All right.
Our pleasure. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.